Welcome, everybody, to Abnormal Investigations. I hope everybody is doing well and that you're having a good day that deserves it. We have an encounter for you that was sent in, guys, about a person that was having a lot of trouble with one of these creatures. Now, it sounds like they tried to trap it, which is really interesting to me. But we're going to see what you all think about this. It's pretty wild, pretty interesting, and honestly, I enjoyed it. It says, Mike, I was fishing the other day down by the old bend in the river, where the bank cuts deep into the bluffs around here. The afternoon, it was quiet, just the sound of the water, and I was just sitting there looking around, and I noticed that there was a black gap in the rock face of a little cliff over here by the water. I had never noticed it before. It was kind of like a cave. It was a small opening, but the curiosity had got the better of me. I walked over, sneaking over to it, and when I got close to the opening, I stopped and started to look inside the damp, dark hole. When I was looking inside of it, I heard something growl. It was a low, guttural growl. Now, it wasn't a dog and it wasn't a bear. It had a ragged kind of a choke sound to it. We do not have bear in Shady Grove, Oklahoma. Or if we do, it's the occasional black bear, but not really to speak of. I've never seen one in all the years that I've lived here. Now, panic did kind of set in on me because I didn't want something, especially if it was a bear, to run out. So I grabbed a fistful or a fist sized rock from the ground and I hurled it into the hole as hard as I could. There was a moment of silence, then a sharp, piercing yelp followed by the scramble of noise. Whatever it was, it sounded hurt and it sounded big. Now, I didn't stick around to find out what was going to run out of that cave, if you know what I mean. I packed up my gear faster than ever and I got the hell out of there. That night is when it really started. First, there was a shadow moving past the window, caught my eye. I looked out the window and didn't see anything. But then I heard a deep growling in the sound in my backyard, right near the garbage cans. It was the same growl almost, not exactly, but it was also closer too. Now, I can hear it walking the fence line as I'm standing outside. That is where it really got scary. And then sometimes at night, there's a whine like something in pain, but mostly it's that low predatory rumble growl that we hear while we're in the home. It really scares me and I don't like it. The yelp from earlier had sounded in pain also, but the current noise was pure, almost anger. Now, I spent the night with every light on in the house and a shotgun leaned against the nightstand. I could hear the pacing outside. It was relentless. I could hear it walking up and down the fence line. And then it scratched the siding near the back door. A sharp sound of claws on wood that made my teeth almost ache. I tried to convince myself it was a coyote, maybe a bobcat, but my gut knew better. This thing had weight to it. The floorboards of my back porch creaked under the steps. It was walking onto my porch. I was scared and I did not even want to go outside or even look outside to see what it was. This is one of those things you really don't want to see it. I would always pray for sunrise, and by sunrise the house was silent again except for my own shaky breathing. I gathered the courage, I unlocked the back door, and I stepped out onto the porch, shotgun in hand, into the cold morning air. It's starting to get cold in Oklahoma. Now, the damage was minimal but unsettling. My metal garbage cans, the heavy duty ones with the locking lids, were overturned. Not scattered, mind you, but neatly tipped over. The lids were still latched. Something had simply pushed them over. The evidence was on the ground. The dew on the grass highlighted the tracks. They weren't dog prints, not even bear prints. They were large, spanning the width of my hand. with 5 distinct toe pads and claw marks that dug deep into the soft earth. The worst part was the patch of dark, almost black fur caught on the splinter of the wood near the bottom of the step. Now it smelled like wet earth and almost, well, like poop. Something like garlic and wild onions. Hard to explain, but very pungent. I called the local sheriff's office in animal control. The sheriff listened patiently enough, likely thinking that I was crazy. He showed up and he told me it was probably a raccoon. And I knew better. But I spent the day buying motion activated floodlights and heavy chain for the metal gate. I felt like I was preparing for a siege, and maybe I was. The scientific mind in me told me that it was something large, something injured. It was a predator, maybe a hybrid wolf dog, or a mix of a wolf and something. Maybe I had injured it and now it had followed me home. But wild animals usually don't want revenge, and this started to get really weird to me. Now, night fell again, bringing the shadows and the sounds that I hated, and I did hate the nights. The growling started earlier this time. Right at dusk, the new floodlights kicked on, lighting the yard harsh white light. The brief flash, I saw it, a shape at the edge of the woods, moving quickly into the darkness again. It was a low creature, moving on the ground almost as if it was crawling like a spider. Fast, far too fast to be anything, especially that size moving that way. Now, the next morning, after another sleepless night, the sheriff returned. The sheriff's name was Miller. He was a thick-set man with a graying beard. Coyote or a big dog, he said, most likely this time when he walked up to me. He kicked one of my trash cans that was still leaning over. I told him. I said, Sheriff, a coyote wouldn't just tip them over. He would have tried to get into the lids, I said, pointing at the tracks. The sheriff crouched, his brow almost as if he was angry, and he inspected them. The prints were large, larger than any domestic dog, and the claw marks were unusually long and deep. He looked at the patch of black fur I had collected. I had placed into a Ziploc bag. He took the bag of fur and said he would give it to the game warden. He grunted and just stared at me. Could be a wolf hybrid, I guess. I could agree with you on that, he said. Folks sometimes get 'em thinking they're cool, then dump 'em when they get too much to handle, he said. He looked at me with doubt in his eyes, like even he knew he was lying. Still not a werewolf, son. Those things aren't in the movies. Or those things are only in the movies. He then nervously laughed. I didn't quite know what to say. How did he know I was thinking the same thing? I know what I heard, I insisted. And I know what I saw moving the floodlights last night. It was way faster than anything I'd ever seen. Now the sheriff sighed, standing back up. I'll put a call into the state wildlife guys. Maybe they can help you with something. The state wildlife officer, a younger woman named Sarah J., is what we'll call her, arrived an hour later. The sheriff was true to his word. She was a professional and direct. She examined the tracks and the fur with a serious expression, taking a casting of the print. I'd asked her if she had spoke to the sheriff, and she had told me yes, he had given her the fur to examine. Again, I was surprised that he had turned it over. The sheer size and display of the toes suggests significant weight and power, she noted. And the fur is not common canid pelt, she said. I'll send this to the lab for DNA test. I was surprised the sheriff had given it to her once again. Kept running through my mind. She spent the afternoon setting a large, humane cage trap near the edge of the woods. She baited it with raw meat. She said it may be injured, she explained. Injured predators are desperate and unpredictable and most dangerous. She told me to make my house a fortress and wait until we catch it. That night, I didn't just turn on the lights. I sat in the living room, watching the yard through a small gap in the curtains. The floodlights were blinding, creating harsh shadows in the woods, and I waited. Around midnight, the silence broke. The growl was back, closer this time near the trap. And then came the metallic clang. I grabbed the shotgun and I yelled, We got it, we got it, we got it. I picked up the phone and I called Sarah J's emergency number immediately. She doesn't live far. This was going to be good. I knew it was in the trap and it was big. She told me, Don't go near it, I'm on my way. She had to work late. Luckily, was still on patrol close. I watched the shape thrash within the confines of the cage. It let out a series of unearthly snarls and yelps that made every hair on my body stand on end. It was a sound of pure rage, of pure pain, and almost as if it was panic that it was caught. Approximately 10 minutes later, Sarah pulled into the driveway, green and white lights flashing. I told her I would join her to go down to the cage. Just as we turned around down the road, we heard more sirens, this time red and blue. It was the sheriff. I knew now we had for sure caught this creature, and I was so ready to see what it was. The sheriff stepped out of his car with his AR 15. Sarah had her 12 gauge. Let's go. We approached the trap slowly, lights fixed on the source of the noise. The thrashing was violent. The cage was rattling dangerously, bouncing all around. The animal inside was hard to see at the distance. We could tell that it was black fur, and that this animal was definitely in a rage. Sheriff Miller and Sarah raised their weapons, focusing their lights. Okay, let's see what we got, the sheriff said. Looks like a black bear, Sarah said. Just as we reached the edge of the light, the animal inside the cage let out a final ear-splitting shriek that was half pain, half fury, and then anger. It threw what sounded like its entire weight against the hinge of the door of the cage. The cheap metal latch snapped with a sickening crack and the shirring of the steel latch. The creature burst from the cage in a low streak of black fur. It was faster than I could have ever imagined. A blurred shape with massive paws. It did not run toward us, thank God. But in an instant, it was headed toward the woods. It turned and looked at me for one last glance in the shadow of the lights. It was a damn werewolf. Everything that I had feared. It didn't look like no other creature. Nothing else to compare it to. It 110% was a werewolf. I have no doubt. I know what I saw, plain as day. I couldn't even say I think it could have been something else when I know exactly what I was looking into. It ran straight into the woods, vanishing in an instant. We stood there stunned and silent. The broken cage laid there twisted in the grass. Sheriff Miller said in a shaky voice, that was no effing dog. Sarah J. just shook her head, laid her weapon down toward the ground. Whatever it was fast and smart enough to break a reinforced lock. I said it was a effing werewolf. Sheriff Miller said, son, I don't think I could disagree with you. And Sarah said, ain't no way we can let this out. She told me she would contact higher up authorities and let me know. They left that night, and the activity ceased. The fur tests came back inconclusive, Sarah had told me on a phone call later. Not enough DNA to get a positive ID, just general canine markers, contaminated with human markers. The tracks stopped appearing, the growls were gone. But the National Guard visited that area several times with helicopters above. I've never seen the creature again. Whatever it was seems to be long gone. I don't think the military got it because I never heard any shots, but I think they could have definitely have chased whatever it was away because I haven't heard it anymore, and whatever it was I even feel is gone. That, my friend, is an awesome story, and I'm glad you shared it. Shady Point, as y'all know, is down southern Oklahoma by the mountains, where there's a lot of things believed to live in those mountains, and to cross over into Arkansas and Missouri, and all of that's all connected through. There's a lot of woods. There's no telling what ran out of that cage, but I have no reason to doubt this man that what he saw was a werewolf. What do y'all think about that? Let me know in the comments. I hope you enjoyed this one, everybody. Keep your head on a swivel. Don't be something stinner. And we'll see you on the next one. And also, don't forget, we will try to go boots on the ground this Friday if I've got everything done this week. So hopefully we can get a boots on the ground out. I know y'all enjoy those, and I enjoy the support you give me. And again, thank you for being there. Good night. God bless, and be safe.